Hello, and welcome to the Trigger Warning. We here at Queer Pressure Podcast want to give you a quick heads up about any content that might make you feel uncomfortable so we can all have a psychedelic time. The following episode contains mentions of sex. We'll be talking about penises, vaginas, and everything in between. There will be mentions of hymens, periods, and the loss of virginity. Also, we will be talking about bullying, homophobia, and queer bashing. If you find any of these topics unsuitable, feel free to turn this episode off immediately and walk away. If not, we are happy to have you join us.
I'm Maddie Gray.
And I am Katherine Johnson, and you, my good friends, are listening to Queer Pressure Podcast.
We are so glad that you've decided to join us.
In case you're new to the podcast or you need a little refresher on what our premise is, this is a podcast where we watch queer-centric media as a continued practice of self-love as forests catch on fire, Republicans take away everything that made us feel happy. Democrats even take away everything that brings us joy. We all slowly die as the world ends, but we've got one thing going for us. And do you know what that is?
What is that, Catherine?
We're here, we're queer, we love a dark beer.
Yes, we do.
So what's the baggage to unpack?
Oh, well, first off, what are you drinking this morning?
I don't know where I put my coffee down, and we're on a time crunch, so I don't want to get up and go looking for it. So I'm just drinking box wine with a bit of orange juice concentrate, my old unemployment standby.
That's great. I am drinking a black tea with a little bit of honey and a shit ton of half and half, as well as, oh, hold on, just one moment. Just one moment.
White Claw? Who's knocking at the door? Who is it? It's a White Claw. We have been trying for about 24 hours now to record this, but had a litany of technical difficulties.
Oh, folks, you have no idea. It was a shit show of the highest order.
Anyways, we figured it out with our own gall, but by then we were so bummed out because we've been doing this for 4 hours that we just watched like 10 hours of Attack on Titan.
Oh man, but that was satisfying.
If you listened to our last episode, we were also talking about Attack on Titan, so we have not grown as people at all.
No, we're the same people we were last episode.
Because we're only halfway through Attack on Titan, and we've been watching it for a few weeks now.
Yes, we have.
And then we have to read the manga. And then we have to wait until the end of the year for both the anime and the manga to finish. So this is kind of...
man.
2020 is the year of giants that eat each other.
Sure is. Speaking of giants who eat each other, let's talk about sex education.
Copy that. Yeah. So what did we watch this week, Madison?
We watched the Netflix original series Sex Education. That was created by writer Lori Nunn. It premiered in January 2019 on Netflix. Season 2 just came out on Netflix. It stars Asa Butterfield as Otis, Gillian Anderson as his sex therapist mom, Jean, Shuti Gaetwa as Eric, his gay best friend, Emma Mackey as Maeve, the high school bad girl, and Connor Swindells as Adam. Oh, fuck.
Adam.
I cannot believe I said
his
that.
name's not Adam, it's Adam.
Connor Swindells as Adam, the kind of flunky dropout loser guy with a good heart.
Whale penis.
I like that you went straight into his giant penis and I went to his good heart. And as well as Kedar Williams Sterling as Jackson, the very attractive high school swimmer boy
who has anxiety.
The soundtrack is by a bisexual musician, Ezra Furman, and his band The Visions. This show gets an 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb. It gets a 9.3 out of 10 on TV.com. And it gets a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a really good show. People really like it.
I'm one of those people. Every episode, we try to start things at a high point by naming the bad about everything we watch, by getting all the problematic stuff out of the way first, because it makes us feel good. It's how we get our jollies. Shall I read the list of the bad for the show?
Please do.
We wrote nothing down.
That's not true. There are question marks.
Yeah, there are 3 question marks. Because last week when we were doing Portrait of a Lady on Fire, we had to really kind of grasp at straws to find something bad about it. And then this week you were asking me, like, what's bad? And I'm like, I don't even want to. Like, I just think this show does a lot of good.
Yeah, it does so much more good than any bad you could even, like, grasp at straws for.
Like, I still haven't thought of anything.
And I'm sure there is definitely something that we're missing. But, again, this show just does so much good in comparison to anything it does wrong that I just don't know that it's worth bringing up anything bad because nothing stuck out to us.
I guess a lot of people have issues with one of the characters falling for his bully plotline, but we'll get to that like it's not really what happens.
I don't have any bad to report. So, Catherine, what is this show about?
Well, this show is set in a weird halfway UK, halfway American setting in a high school. It follows our lovely protagonist, Otis, he's an awkward, sexually repressed nerd.
Can relate.
Yeah. Hashtag, is this a family reunion? 'Cause I relate.
That was a good one.
Thank you. Submitting that one for the Peabody. He exists kind of on the edge of the social strata because he's a nerd. But his mother is a well-accomplished, very sexy, very confident relationship and sex therapist. Having grown up with her, mostly her because the parents are separated, so mostly having her as the primary caregiver, he's picked up a lot of therapeutic instincts, and after landing in a situation where he's kind of forced to help somebody with their social problem or their sexual issues and then ends up helping them get over it. One of our other main characters, Maeve, who's a very, very smart but unlucky in life department bad girl.
She's our bad girl, yeah.
She's a bad girl, but she also lives alone in a trailer and has had to take care of herself entirely on her own, but she's very smart, decides that they should start their own underground sex clinic at the school to offer the kind of sex education you don't get in a typical educational environment.
Yes. In this show, they do a whole lot of very good sex education. Like, this show stands in as a really good source of sex education for teens if they are not getting the sex education that they need and that they deserve.
What are the chances that they are?
Not very good in our country.
Well, actually, as we're like Googling this stuff for this podcast, like just a week ago in Washington, our home state, they passed a bill that they have to redo all the sex education in Washington state.
Thank God.
Because that's the sex education we had. And
yeah, and it was bad.
We had a pretty funny conversation where we were trying to remember what our sex education was. And whenever I think about it, I'm like, do I just not remember it that well? Because I can remember very few things, and the things I do remember are a little weird. And then you came to me and was like, I only remember learning about how not to get AIDS. And I was like, oh my God, me too.
Yes. So in our school, we went to the same high school. We were a year apart, but, you know, same education system.
Mm-hmm.
While the 11th graders were taking their standardized testing, the 9th and 10th graders had to go learn how to not get AIDS.
Yeah.
I actually remember a teacher drawing out little weaves on the board and drawing little sperms and showing us very scientifically how those sperms could fit right on through them weaves to give you AIDS.
Then did she like turn on Friends and shows condoms are only, 99% effective because Rachel got pregnant and they used a condom?
No, she didn't show Friends. The only other thing that I remember
that would have been too fun.
It's too fun. We have no fun in sex education.
No fun in sex education.
The only other thing that I remember is getting a period talk in the 6th grade, right when most girls were either right about to or just starting their periods for the first time.
And we had both already had ours.
For several years by that point. But all I remember is that we split the boys and the girls into 2 different rooms. The boys learned about ejaculation and pregnancy, I think, maybe. Probably not the full pregnancy experience or anything like that, but how to get someone pregnant.
They probably just pointed at them with a Bible and said, if you have sex, you will get a girl pregnant and you will get AIDS.
And then us girls learned about the menstruation process, and then they sent us away with pads.
Yeah, this is really the proof of how bad of sex education we had, is that I used pads until I was 18.
Nobody taught us anything.
Mm-hmm.
There was, okay, so I knew that my teacher in 6th grade, when we had that menstruation talk, they did tell us that tampons could inadvertently take your virginity. That was something that,
They could take your virginity?
Yeah, that your hymen could be broken by using a tampon.
Hymen's breaking is not virginity.
But that's exactly what they framed it as. So our sex education was so stupid wild.
Because first of all, you could break your hymen in any sort of like athletic anything.
Playing a softball, playing t-ball, riding a bike.
And also like having penetrative sex for the first time is not necessarily losing your virginity. That's like a specific thing to you of when you thought that was it, you know?
Right. And also virginity is a made up concept anyway.
It's also made up. We also just shouldn't care about any of this shit. Yeah. Like, I do not think a tampon is nearly the same as having something pounding into you with gusto. Whoa. I do not think those are comparable experiences at all. That's so fucked up to like compare.
But everybody's hymen is different. Like, you know, some people have like a perforated hymen that like you can't actually get anything in there and you have to have it surgically taken apart.
Gross.
I know. I've had a friend that had that problem.
Not gross. Part of the beautiful human experience. Anyway, it's probably gonna take out half of that hymen talk because it's
damn it.
It's just a little too off. Because I really want to talk about the AIDS thing because we only kind of briefly mentioned it, but mostly our education on sex, because they have that joke in Mean Girls where if you have sex you will get chlamydia and you will die. That not as funny as that, but really the extent of our sex education, we learned a little bit about anatomy, but the main point that they made to us is if you have sex you will get AIDS. We even watched a video about a woman who had been married to a man for a year and he gave her AIDS. So really what we walked away with is the only way to not get AIDS is to remain abstinent for the rest of your life.
Sex is scary and bad and you shouldn't do it even when you're married. It's so funny too because they didn't bring up anything about like gay sex. They weren't talking about having, you know, homosexual sexual activity. It was all about like P and V, but you're still gonna get AIDS. Both of you.
Can you blame them? Because lesbians aren't real and male sex is a sin.
Huh. That's a hot take.
But where our high school fell short, my church gladly stepped in.
Yay, organized religion.
Yeah, and because if you haven't listened to other episodes, I grew up as an evangelical Christian by my own choosing. My parents didn't make me do this, and am not anymore, obviously. But we had a whole sex unit for like a month, and they put the letters SEX like giant across the youth room because they wanted to be like, we're hip and cool kids, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna talk about sex, baby, because we're a cool hip church, which is what they always fucking did, even though they were just telling us this crazy First Testament shit in our heads. But they always pretend we play rock music, we talk about sex, but also gay people should go to hell.
Oh my god.
But all I remember from that like month of sex talk was everyone just kind of giving their position on how you should be abstinent till marriage. No other option. Even one of the older girls who was like really pretty, probably really popular at her school, she was like 16, had a boyfriend. She even said, well, if you're naked with your boyfriend, you're both kissing, is that sex? And the answer was yes. So my church was very much that like, if it's beyond kissing, in the eyes of God, it's sex. And then you're gonna have to go through this whole fucking repurification thing so you can wear your purity ring, and then you can wait till marriage to have sex. Maybe you can wait till marriage to kiss.
Oh jeez.
My friend was doing that. I hope she hasn't anymore.
I hope not too, for her sake.
But anyways, for the point of this podcast, absolutely nothing about being gay in sex education.
No, we don't talk about the gays, you see.
No.
Those are bad. We also didn't talk about consent or pleasure or like...
Well, sex isn't for pleasure.
No, of course not. That's for baby making and such.
So this show is a little different from what we've done, because so far we've done entirely queer stories where the main character is gay and the main story is about being gay, or we've done things where the story is nothing about being gay, but we were analyzing the queer context. where this show is about young people navigating sex and relationships, but a huge part of the cast are queer. Something really great about this show is that we hit almost every letter of the LGBTQIA acronym.
Though we are missing any trans characters. But
yes.
That doesn't mean that that's true, because there may be trans characters that we don't know about. People transition when they're young too. Like,
the way they ramped up from season 1 to 2, the representation went way, way up in season 2. So I would expect to have a trans character in the next season, or a trans plot line.
So I'm going to kind of list out our representation in this show. We've got Otis, the main character. It's speculated that he might be asexual, but that may also just be he has a lot of hang-ups about sex and a lot of phobias around sex. And that doesn't necessarily make someone asexual, but...
Yeah, it might just be that he's nervous, but what's happened so far, it could still end up with him being asexual, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. And then there's Eric, his best friend, who is openly and proudly gay.
And he's the best character.
Oh, he is. He really is.
Then
there's Adam, the high school bully and bad boy, who is bisexual. This is a male bisexual character, which we never see in TV. It's always female bisexual.
Well, because a bisexual woman is sexy.
And a bisexual man is...
gross. Because men control everything, and men think women having sex with women is hot as long as they'll still have sex with you. But a man wanting to have sex with you, gross.
Then we have an actually out asexual character. She is not a big character, but she comes to Otis's mom saying, I don't think I ever want to have sex. I'm just not really into it. And she realizes in that moment that she is asexual. Her name is Florence. She's the lead actor in the drama club.
And what's important about their conversation, she says, I feel like I'm broken, which a lot of people...
Oh, yeah, that was such a beautiful moment.
I remember I got in a big, long conversation with the producer on a movie I was on, that he was like, why isn't asexuality thought of as like sexual disorder? And I was like, just because it's not. And there's no way I could get him to wrap his mind around it. Because I was like, people who like sex just can't think of it as, like, they think of that as like a healthy part of their lives. But what Otis's mother, the sex therapist, says to this girl is, sex does not make you whole. So therefore, how could you be broken?
Yeah.
And she smiles, and it's nice.
It was really sweet. Mm-hmm. And then we have Otis's girlfriend for most of season 2, who comes out as pansexual.
Allah.
Then we have kind of a naughty, popular, untouchable kid named Anwar, who is openly gay. We have a lesbian couple that Otis gives sex therapy advice to. Their names are Ruthie and Tanya. And then in season 2, we get a new character from France,
where we know they're all sexual pariahs.
And this is Raheem. He becomes Eric's boyfriend.
Eric being the openly gay guy we were first talking about.
And then we have Jackson, who is the school sports star. He has 2 moms named Sophia and Roz. And then we have kind of one of my favorite characters, even though she's not like a main character. And Catherine, I know you disagree about her being a favorite, but
I don't dislike her.
She's a lot weird.
I'm not attracted to her.
Oh, that's fine. Her name is Lily, and she is just queer. We don't know what she is, and that's kind of beautiful. I found an article by Teen Vogue called Sex Education is one of the queerest teen shows ever.
For sure.
Quote that says, Lily never comes out or puts herself in a box. She just starts seeing Allah, showing that not everyone who ends up in a same-sex relationship also anchors themselves with some sort of concrete identity. And that is so true.
Which she might at some point, but at this point, maybe she hasn't. She's just dating a woman.
And I'm sure we're missing probably some small characters, but these are kind of the main cast of queers.
Yeah. So because that's a lot of people, which we have not had to deal with yet, we thought the majority of this podcast, we're just going to kind of talk about each character and what they go through.
So who would you like to start with?
Eric, obviously. Also, Eric's a black man, also dark-skinned, because
a dark-skinned black man.
Because representation for people of color, they typically skew to light-skinned black people. Mm-hmm. So it's fantastic seeing He's arguably one of the main characters. I think you could argue that there are 3 main characters in the show. It's like a Ron, Harry, Hermione situation.
Yeah. The actor is Rwandan. I think the character is Nigerian. So I kind of broke down all of the characters into like the thing that defines their journey in these 2 seasons that are already out.
Oh, I want to cry now. Just thinking about Eric.
He's so great.
So funny.
For Eric, what it came down to is the radical act of self-love.
More so than any other character in this show, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
He's already out to his parents, so we don't have a coming out story through him, which is fine because we're going to have it with a lot of other characters. So we're just seeing a different part of his story in that he's come out to his parents, but now has to, kind of the premise of this show, of what happens after you come out.
Exactly. The journey after the coming out.
And when we first meet Eric, so he's a nerd, like his best friend Otis, the main character, but he's really funny and he just yells a lot and he's a delight, just a peach. But he's a geek, he's unpopular. People call him Tromboner. But he has a crush on Anwar, who is the popular out gay guy at the school. Otis points out to him, you don't have to like him just because he's the other out gay guy, which I think a lot of us have fallen into when, you know, you first come out, where it's like, well, there's another lesbian, so I have to like her.
And also narratively, that's a huge trope that appears in queer media. It's like, no, I'm gay, so I have to go date the only other out person.
Yeah, and that kind of goes on for Eric, not just with Anwar, because in season 2, he dates Raheem, who's really cute and is another out gay guy, but doesn't make him sparkle.
Aww.
But on paper, you should date this guy because he's like there's like 2 out gay guys at the school, but you don't necessarily have a connection with them. So-and-so's a lesbian. Are you into them? And I have to explain to everybody when we go out to drink because I can see there's another lesbian. I'm like, just because there's another lesbian does not mean I am attracted to that person.
Are you attracted to every straight person?
They would be like, yeah, I'm attracted to all women. I'm like, well, that's a personal problem.
Yeah, that sounds like a you thing.
That's a you thing. Not necessarily a problem to be attracted to literally everyone, but I'm barely attracted to anyone.
So there's a moment where it's Eric's birthday and Otis and Eric are going to go see Hedwig and the Angry Inch. The boys dress up and they go to the bus stop.
When we say dress up, they're dressed in drag, like dresses, makeup, wigs.
Eric ends up having to go on the bus by himself. The boys don't end up going, but Eric gets his wallet and his phone stolen and he tries to get home. And on the way home, some gay bashers come out and beat him up. In a sense, Eric kind of goes back into the closet a little bit. Not like he doesn't like proclaim that he's straight or anything like that, but he starts dressing much more conservatively. He kind of pulls in on himself. And then Anwar says something offhanded and Eric punches him in the face.
So he goes hyper self-homophobic from this thing that happened to him. And his dad, who's probably a bit more conservative, tries to get him to not dress this way and tells him, like, you're gonna get hurt. And he's like, shut up, Dad. It's the 20s now. Self-love. And then does get the shit beaten out of him. Then has to learn to continue on and move on from that and still practice self-love, even though he has been the target of a hate crime. And he doesn't do it in the best way because he punches another gay man.
Yeah, he does. But in the end, he does go to the school. He decides to go to the school dance, like, dressed up in a way that really, like, defines him, in a way that there's a lot of patterns, there's a lot of makeup, there's a really beautiful high heels and a great scarf on his head. Like, it's all beautiful. And Eric's like, I'm going to the dance. And his dad's like, no, wait, are you going to wear that? He's like, yeah, I'm going to wear this.
No, I'm just going to wear it to the door.
Let me drive you. And his dad drives him to the dance. And they have this moment in the car where Eric's dad is like, I don't understand. Like, I don't want you to get hurt. When I moved here, I had to, like, assimilate, basically. And you're just not doing that. And Eric's like, yeah, because, like, I'm gonna get hurt either way, and I'd rather be myself while I'm doing it.
Which is something we talked about on the Love, Simon episode, that we're now learning there are emotional benefits to kind of facing the fear and coming out.
Mm-hmm. People who come out in high school have much lower rates of depression and anxiety
versus someone like
who doesn't come out, like Catherine,
versus someone like
until
me.
afterwards.
So while Eric's journey of self-love is happening, we have a parallel journey going on with the character Adam, whale penis.
We don't
Gruff.
call him that. He doesn't like it.
No, he does not like it.
It hurts his feelings.
It does hurt his feelers. Adam is not very smart or good at anything.
Fairly clumsy, kind of dumb.
A bully.
Not very well spoken. He's a bully, but his dad is headmaster of the high school.
And his dad is also Fraser Crane.
Yeah, his dad is absolutely Fraser Crane.
But not nice.
In fact,
Fraser Crane was a nice guy.
Indeed. But from here on out, we're just going to refer to Headmaster Groff
as Dr. Crane.
Fraser Crane.
Yeah. Are you there, God? It's me, Dr. Fraser Crane. It's my favorite line from anything and anything ever.
So what happens in Adam's story?
Adam is actually the inciting incident in the first episode that gets Otis to start a sex therapy practice that Adam can't come, and he figures out that it's because everyone calls him whale penis and his dad's mean to him. So he stands on a table and shows everyone his dick and says, look, it's just barely above average. And then he can come.
Yeah, it's all about embracing his narrative.
But the repercussions of this are that his dad, Dr. Fraser
publicly
Crane,
explodes himself to the whole school.
His father, Dr. Fraser Crane, gets mad at him again, and he gets punished, which he's always punished. And his cool girlfriend breaks up with him. And when he asks why, she says, "You're embarrassing, Adam," which stings.
Yeah.
And so for the rest of the season, we have this fallout of Adam, his life completely falling apart, which is deserved because he is a dick to everyone else in his life.
But he's like most bullies, he has like a lot of emotional trauma.
Yeah. We realized towards the end of season 2, it finally hit me that there's not a single person in the world that likes Adam.
Mm-hmm.
His mom's kind of nice to him. His dad hates him. He has never had a friend before. And like his girlfriend even said he was embarrassing and broke up with him and won't be around him. He has zero support in his entire life. No one thinks he is worth anything. And at the end of season 1, he bullies Eric a lot, and they get stuck cleaning up a room together as detention, and it turns into a physical confrontation, and it's tense, and then suddenly they schwap some spit, is the poetic way of saying it.
And some other bodily
and some other, yeah, they kiss, and then Adam goes down on Eric, and Eric seems to really enjoy it. And so this is where a lot of people's issues with Eric fell for his abuser. This is a shitty trope. And I read something that explained it much better, that the show never makes an excuse for Adam because of his shitty life.
No.
His fucking life falls so apart. So right after this, after they have their moment, and Adam's like, don't tell anyone, because that's gay. Like the next day, he shows up to chemistry and has to sit next to Eric. And there's just this really sad, sweet moment where he like starts to very slowly like put his knee like towards Eric, and then like puts his hand out. And Eric's like, what do you want me to do with that? And
then just very gently, they're like touching pinkies.
Yeah,
and, like, it's very tender
so
and
sad.
Sweet. Yeah.
And then immediately afterwards, he gets sent to military school. So Adam's life completely falls apart. His dad, he gets broken up with. He gets yelled at school all the time. Him and his dad hates him and is awful to him.
He gets caught cheating on an essay that like wins an award.
And then he gets sent to military school. So he is so punished for what he did. And that's just season 1 of what happens to Adam.
What's also wonderful about so I don't love the narrative of, victim falls for abuser.
Yeah.
That is not something that I think is romantic or sweet.
Like,
in this particular instance,
he has a bad past. It makes him sexy.
Not even that. Like your past and like your baggage, your trauma doesn't justify you traumatizing more people. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Sorry? Are you saying that to me specifically?
No, I'm saying that to anybody who's listening who
am I
may treat
traumatizing?
people poorly. You're traumatizing me right now. But what this show does is it talks about that. Otis, when he finds out that something happened between Eric and Adam, he says, no, this is bullshit. He's treated you like shit for years.
Yeah.
And it makes Eric really go, oh, yeah, he really did. And
middle fingers up to Adam.
Middle fingers up to Adam. And he turns him down. And, you know, it just takes this narrative that we see so often in straight media, especially things that are like hyper sexualized, like 50 Shades, for instance. So this is a trope that shows up a lot in media, in queer media, in straight media, in all kinds of media. The victim falling for the abuser, things like Stockholm Syndrome. But what this show does is it takes that narrative, it airs it all out. It shows you the problem with that narrative. And then it shows you Adam trying to improve for Eric.
It's so sad.
It's very sad.
Dund played a sad fiddle on my heart because Adam gets kicked out of military school, even though it was the first place he ever felt accepted. He gets kicked out and he did nothing wrong, and he comes back and he has to work at like a Rite Aid and his life sucks. But he starts sneaking out with Eric and they're kind of clicking, and then Otis is like, Eric, you can't be with him. So they have this...
He made your life hell!
Yeah, so they have this confrontation because Adam used to like throw rocks at his window and he would come out and he was like, you stop coming to the window, Eric. And this is like a very tall, very scary looking guy and he's so sad.
He's just being like so sad.
And Eric's like, you bullied me for years and like that doesn't get to just go away because now you're paying attention to me and being nice to me. And he's like, nobody likes me. He's like, I think I'm bisexual and I'm scared. And it's so sad. And it's so unfair that he has to be scared of this. Yeah. You see a parallel between these two people that even though Eric would have a stereotypically conservative father, has come around and loves his son, thinks his son is brave, where Adam has Dr. Fraser Crane, who's never going to be cool with this.
Nope.
And so he has to be frightened of this part of himself. And in the end, Eric says, it's not enough, boy. You got to be able to hold my hand.
In public and not be embarrassed about it.
And so Adam sabotages the school musical. This show's really good, guys. And he jumps on stage and pulls Adam out of like the pit for the band, or pulls Eric out, and they hold hands, and it's lovely.
They hold hands in front of everybody.
But it does really display that this is not that typical trope. They're doing these tropes, but they're showing them the correct way of how it happens in real life.
How it can happen in a way that's like healthy and good for the parties involved.
And to, you know, bring this back to the premise of the podcast, these are not stories that we often get for gay characters.
Especially like there is a love triangle that occurs between Eric, Adam, and Rahim.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see love triangles we do see a lot of love triangles in straight media. We see so many. It's one of the most annoying tropes at this point. But it's kind of nice, and like we talked about this in Love, Simon, it's kind of nice for like a vanilla story to show up in queer media. It's kind of nice to see an overused trope used on
us,
people who don't usually get this.
Yeah, because the queerness is still there, but it's not overpowering the story. It's not just about being gay. This is an actual romantic thing that could happen, where even when we do have representation, a lot of it is just kind of about being gay, which is great.
And like the struggles of being gay.
Yeah.
And
that's still
the tragedy
there.
Involved in being queer.
It's still there in this story, but we get so much else from it.
We get so much nuance and so much development.
And they're cute. Apart from just having a very cute, a couple really cute queer plot lines, as we talked about before, one of the major benefits of this show is that they are giving sex education that you wouldn't get in high school. And part of that is from some of the episodes where we're focusing on queer questions that you would not ever have answered in sex education.
Like what?
Like, we get to watch a couple of lesbians who are having a hard time figuring it all out. And we see them trying to have sex and it's awkward and they just don't get it, which is a thing with, you know, lesbians where you are like kind of vaguely aware that you're supposed to be scissoring, maybe? What? And Otis ends up talking to the two of them, and it gets down to, we find out the problem is more that they just don't click as a couple, and they're dating because they were friends and they came out at the same time, so they figured why wouldn't they date. But that's why the sex is weird, not just because lesbian sex is weird and they can't figure it out. It's they have to learn there also needs to be an emotional connection.
Yes.
Which gets back to what we were saying of, you know, when someone else is out, you figure you should just date them.
But like, you have a right to be, you know, attracted to the person you're with. You have a right to be sexually compatible with the person you're with. And these girls just haven't learned that yet.
And one of the other smaller plot lines is popular boy Anwar wants to finally have anal sex with his boyfriend, and his boyfriend's like, okay, have you douched yet? And he's like, oh, and then he makes up an excuse to leave and is desperately trying to find out how you douche and can't get a straight answer. And finally, when he goes to get an answer from one of the other gay characters, that character's like, well, why don't you just talk to your boyfriend about it? And he's like, well, I'm ready to have sex. I'm just not ready to talk to him about douching. And he's like, if you're not ready to talk to him about douching, you're not ready to have his cock up your butt, my good sir. Another very good lesson, because
yeah, you have to be like, you have to be able to communicate with the person that you want to sleep with.
And because with gay men, there's a lot of kind of the stereotype is the focus on the sexual part of it. And so we get a plot line about, it's not just about the sex, it's about communicating with your partner just like anyone else would, despite gender or sexuality.
So Dan Savage, a writer for The Stranger in Seattle, he is a super turfy gay man. But he's also the guy who raised money to change Rick Santorum's last name into the definition of
Santorum,
fecal matter and lubricant.
Yeah, that's what Santorum is.
Sex. Yep, sure is. He claims that traditionally there's a lot less communication between straight couples because people tend to know what parts go where and whose role is what. Mm-hmm. But in a gay relationship, you actually have to communicate. Like, do you like to be on top? Do you like to bottom? Like, what is the most comfortable thing for you? Where Anwar has to learn this in this moment of like, I don't know how to do this thing to prepare myself for this act that we want to do together. And he learns that, you know, communicating with his partner is going to be the most effective way to do that.
Which is just not advice that anyone is giving anyone. It's like, do you have a problem if you're like on the floor and I'm a pile driver on top of you, but then you get way too much air in your stomach and then you explode?
Wow, that sounds...
Which is things we should all know.
Yeah, those are like, there's a lot of intricacies to sex and to all of the things that go into it about like preparing and, you know, foreplay and pleasure and consent and safe sex. Like, these are all things that are super, super important for our youth to learn, but nobody's teaching them. Like, Catherine, did your parents ever tell you anything about sex?
No.
Nothing at all?
No.
Mine didn't really either. My mom, when I was young, nobody ever gave me the sex talk or anything like that. Except for, I guess, my great-grandma tried one time, but it made me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
She was like, do you know what sex is? And I was like, I don't know. I make babies.
You put the
and she was like,
penis in the
think
vagina.
of your vagina as a taco shell. And a man... No, she said a hot dog bun. And a man's appendage as a hot dog. And I was like,
wait, so it can burst out the top of it?
No, what I thought until I started reading fan fiction, basically, was that the penis was supposed to go in between the two labia minora. Yeah.
I can 100%
I didn't
see that.
realize
when
that
she
there
said
was a
that,
hole.
I was like, your vagina is a hole. It's not a taco bun or a
that's
hot dog
exactly
bun.
Like, when I was a young kid, that's what I thought. I was like, that doesn't seem... How do you get a baby from that? You just put it in there and just leave it? I don't know.
Weird.
Yeah, Grandma wasn't very good at the sex talk. But I was also like 7, 8.
Yeah. But how long did it take for you before you found out that you don't slide it between the labias?
Well, one day,
I mean, you can, but that's not the...
Yeah, you can.
That's not the main act.
Anything you can do, but that's not... Well, it depends on who you are and if you like penetration, I guess. But I didn't know that penetration was a thing until I actually, when I was young, somebody had left a mirror on the ground and I stepped over it and saw a hole in me.
What the fuck is that?
Scared the shit out of myself.
What the fuck is that?
No, I was like, Mom, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, look. And I put the mirror under me again. And I was like, there's a hole.
There's a hole.
She was like,
me.
oh my God.
Jesus.
She was like, that's your vagina. And I was like, what?
Ew.
You mean it goes up in? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh no.
Ruby's got big beef curtains.
Oh, poor Ruby.
That made me laugh a lot. I just thought that was really funny. No one should have said that.
That's also something that shows up in this show is like people are making fun of Ruby, who
most popular girl at school.
Yeah. And she sends a nude to a boy who inadvertently ends up sent to the whole school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people are like making fun of her labia and things like that. And then later, it's not like specifically about Ruby later, but Otis's mom is brought into the school to try to cater or to
give better sex education.
Yeah, to give a better sex education curriculum to the students. And by doing that, kind of trying to see where they're at and what they need. And she offers advice like, is my labia too long? The answer is always going to be no.
Always no.
It's causing you problems.
Unless it's
causing you like actual like pain and health problems. Like, no, your labia are fine. There's no unusual labia unless, again, there's problems.
All vaginas are weird. All of them.
Penises too. Genitalia are weird.
Genitalia are always weird. And there's nothing wrong
and yours
with that.
is no weirder than anyone else's.
And no one should tell you any differently. Even if Ruby's got big beef curtains.
My God. I don't like that phrase.
I love it. I think it's so funny. And they say it in the British accent. She's like, Ruby's got big beef curtains. And it just killed me. It's like, that's so mean, but like, beef curtains. I Googled the hardest sex ed quiz ever.
Ooh.
Would you like a little quiz here?
Yes, I would love a little quiz.
Number
here.
1. What are human sex cells called? Zygotes, ovum, spermatoza, or gametes? Is that how you pronounce it?
It's zygotes.
It's gametes.
No. Oh.
When does a woman usually ovulate? On the first day of her period? On the last day of her period? On the first day of her menstrual cycle? That's the same fucking thing. Around 14 days into her menstrual cycle.
Around 14 days into her menstrual
cycle. That's what I think too. Correct. Are sperm and semen the same thing?
No, sperm are in semen.
Correct. How many nerve endings does the clitoris have? 15, 500, 8,000, or 3,000?
8,000, the most.
That's what I think. Yep, 8,000. Which part of the male reproductive system is the arrow pointing to? You can't see it.
I can't see it.
Where
is it pointing?
So here's a penis, but we're inside. There's like the ball and there's like a long cord going up. And it says urethra, sperm duct, Cowper's gland, or testes.
Probably the Cowper's gland if it goes over the penis.
It's the sperm duct. Is there a safe time of the month when a woman can't get pregnant from unprotected sex?
No. I mean, you can always get pregnant.
You can always get pregnant, even in a hot tub. Which part of the female reproductive system is the arrow pointing to?
God damn it, Catherine.
I'm going to say that is the cervix. I was right. Okay.
I can't see it, so I can't answer.
How many sperm are in the average ejaculation? 10,000?
So many.
100, 200 to 500 million, 52.
The millions.
Yeah, I think so too. We're correct. Because I even mentioned that on this podcast once. It was like, of the 500 million other people that could have existed, you do. So no pressure. Which of these STIs can be transmitted via oral sex? Herpes, gonorrhea, HPV, or all of the above?
All of them.
I think so too. Yes. And finally, can you catch an STI from a toilet seat?
No. Unless you rub your vulva all over it.
It says no. You know you're
somebody came on it and then you rubbed your vulva all over it. Yeah, you
and then like hung upside down for a bit.
But no, most likely not.
You scored 8 out of 10. You know your sexy stuff. We bet you were the knowledgeable friend everyone turned to for info in school, right? No. Torrent me. If you guys listening at home didn't get most of those right, maybe brush up on your sex education. Maybe watch the show
And
Sex
watch
Education.
Sex Education.
Anyway, so here's hoping that this young group of Gen Zs will get different sex education than we did. Like, at the very least, to be talking about consent and female pleasure.
And safe sex.
But hopefully also admitting that sometimes men have sex with each other, sometimes women have sex with each other.
Sometimes people who are non-binary
have sex with each other.
Sometimes people of all stripes don't want to have sex.
Yeah. And it's all cool as long as you feel good about it.
And as long as there's consent.
Enthusiastic consent. You know what I'm enthusiastic about?
Is it maybe your chest of nice things?
No, it's my fake Instagram I made last week that I wanted to shout out. It's a Lizzie McGuire meme Instagram. It's called Lizzie McGuire #1 fans, all one word.
Go ahead and follow
And
it.
that's all I have going in my life is that Instagram.
Catherine's unemployed right now, and so she texted me the other day that she needed to get back to her real job, which was running a Lizzie McGuire fan meme account.
Anyways, I guess the other thing going on in my life. So, to anyone new to the podcast, we do something at the end of each episode where Madison gave me a gift that I hate.
Yes, I got some handmade paper. I wrote nice things all on these strips of paper and put them in a beautiful wooden chest with confetti and nice things.
Yeah, and they're all about me.
In every single episode, we make Catherine read one. Because this podcast is a practice of self-love, which Catherine hates.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pushing it onto her a little bit, challenging her.
All right. So, and one of the practices of self-love we did in this episode was talking freely about sex when we weren't allowed to do that for most of our lives. And the next thing, this says, one time on my birthday, I fell off a raft. Oh my God, I forgot. And you cackled like a zealous witch. That was recent. It was good because we were about to hit this rapid and we were doing a raft trip for her birthday, and I was like, you're gonna fall in, and she did. Instead of helping, I just laughed because we had a raft guide whose job it is to get you out of the water. So I just pointed at you and laughed, and you were looking up from the water, the churning white water. You look up like, help me, I'm gonna drown, it's my birthday. And I pointed back at you and went, I told you, bitch, that you were gonna fall in. I've been rafting since I was 5 years old and I've never fallen in, but everyone else who's ever been with me has. Okay, well, that's enough of that. Happy Queer Day to you all, and may you all, I guess, like yourselves a little bit better than you did an hour ago, maybe? Would be the hope. You have been listening to Queer Pressure Podcast and our critical explorations of queer media as a continued practice of self-love with Kath Thorne in your side, Johnson.
And Maddie Gray. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes. That is the best way to help us out and make us grow. You can also...
Or you can send me cookies.
Please also follow us on Twitter at Queer Pressure PC for podcast.
Not Pussy Cum. What's new, Pussy Cum? Bye.